that to puff with my career, because he taught me really everything I know about the industry.
You say you're very surprised and shocked by what's now come out. I wouldn't be shocked if I'd seen what happened to Cassie. I think this guy's a monster. Do you feel any sense of guilt that you didn't report it?
We were terrified of Sean. I wish that I could have done something more.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? Happy Sunday. So I wanted to come on. There's so much going on with Karen Reed. Going to be talking about that tomorrow. But I wanted to talk about today this incredible interview I saw with P Diddy's makeup artist, Mylah Morales. And boy, she doesn't know what she knows. She's blanked out what she saw, and she's in PTSD because of it. But boy, was he incredible and at the top of his game at one time, P Diddy was. So I wanted to play it as really a listening exercise more than anything, because I really do believe that people reveal themselves by what they talk about. People talk about what's important to them and what words they use and how they express themselves. So I thought we'd look at this today just as a fun exercise on a Sunday, because really if you don't know, so for those that don't know, P Diddy is facing federal charges in the Southern District of New York, who has a 90% success rate as far as convictions for trafficking charges. This is the kind of cases that the Southern District and the Eastern District is really making their name on in the past year. We have Nygaard from Canada coming up sometime. Ghislaine Maxwell was tried and convicted in the Southern District. Larry Ray, tried and convicted in the Southern District. NXIVM, all the NXIVM defendants, and Keith Raniere, tried and convicted in the Eastern District of New York. So New York City is really making its name on these cases. And I'm sure I've forgotten one besides Nygaard. I think that there's one I've forgotten. I guess Epstein before he died. I'll just say died. Okay. We won't get into that topic. So here is Mylah Morales, who was P Diddy's makeup artist. So what's been coming out about P Diddy is very much like Epstein and Maxwell, cameras everywhere. There's been allegations of being some kind of maybe a liaison for the FBI, CIA, who knows, as for like entrapping people with these kind of embarrassing videos. You have these big parties. But he's facing really serious charges that will put him away forever if he's convicted. And of course, he's represented by Mark Agnefello, who was Keith Raniere's lawyer, the NXIVM guru, cult guru. So if you don't know about the NXIVM cult, go back. I went to all the early hearings and to much of Keith Raniere's trial. I also went to Ghislaine Maxwell's trial and all of Larry Ray's trial. So Larry Ray was another cult leader who went directly from prison to my alma mater, Sarah Lawrence College, and started a cult there, basically. That's the short version. It's way worse than the Hulu documentary, The Lost Kids of Sarah Lawrence, makes it out to be. There's so much that needs to be exposed in that story. There was just a civil lawsuit that was thrown out on technicalities against Sarah Lawrence College. I was so happy to see it by some of the students, but unfortunately thrown out on technicalities, and Sarah Lawrence College fought it every step of the way. They're continuing to say that they didn't know, and basically calling their alumnus victims liars. It's so outrageous and angering. But back to P Diddy. So this is Mylah Morales, who was P Diddy's makeup artist for years on Piers Morgan. Not a big fan of his. He did a horrendous interview with the West Memphis 3, which I often make fun of on Twitter. He blocked me over it, which means that he must be looking up his name on Twitter, because I did not at him on that tweet, but I'm blocked by Piers on Twitter, I guess.
By talking to Mylah Morales, who worked as Sean Combs' makeup artist for many years, was also friends with Cassandra Cassie Ventura, as well as Diddy's deceased partner, Kim Porter. Well, welcome to Uncensored, Mylah. Just to paint a picture of how well you know P. Diddy, how long did you work for him?
I worked with Sean Combs in 2000, early 2000, until 2005.
So around
well
5 years or so.
I was 5 years or so, yes.
And how much time did you spend with him?
I spent a lot of obviously I did his male grooming. So we did a lot of, it was strictly professional, and we spent video shoots, photo shoots. I traveled the world with Kim and Sean because, he invented the he invented the entourage.
Okay, a couple things. So she says that she attended to his male grooming, which is extremely intimate act. And then she says she didn't see anything. Now, I worked as a temporary secretary for Sean Combs' Bad Boy Records for 1 or 2 weeks. I can't remember, a very short period of time, years ago, maybe around this early 2000s, I would say. And I have a video about it. What I saw was very strange. Nobody seemed to be doing any work. There were these young men who came in who said that they were fashion designers, dressed like totally unfashionably, and they would wait around and talk to me for hours on end waiting for Sean Combs. It was odd. I was the most protected, and I saw some odd stuff. I walked away from it wondering what the heck was going on in that office my whole life. And this woman, who's really on the inside doing Sean Combs attending to his male grooming and doing his makeup, first says that it was strictly professional, and she was just on photo shoots, mainly professional places where nothing disreputable. I don't know. What do you call it? would happen. Nothing that she wouldn't want to be a part of happened. Let's put it that way. So she seems most interested in furthering the notion. Then she says that Sean Combs invented the entourage. What was the Rat Pack? I think that's news to Frank Sinatra at all. That Sean Combs invented the entourage, but okay there. So this is a pattern that you'll see in this interview, where she will go over again and again what an innovator he was, an iconoclast, how he was at the top of his game, and she was right there with him. So you get immediately that she's very interested in promoting whatever career that she has. I don't know if she's been on a downward slide since and is trying to get back there, or she doesn't want it to affect the career she has now, but she would like everyone to know that she was working for the best of the best and innovator, kind of a great flawed man type situation there.
So I would travel with Kim and Puff to Saint-Tropez to make sure that Kim was ready for the paparazzi.
And what was he like? I mean, when you were around him then, albeit this is quite a long time ago, 20 years ago, but what was your assessment, being that close to him for that length of time? What was your assessment of his character?
Well, Puff was a perfectionist, and he was just a completely hard worker. He wanted everything to look grandioso. And, you know, he taught me really everything I know about the industry, like as far as like, you know, being...
So she uses this word grandioso, which is really a word that is seen in music. So I think she means grandiose. And so larger than life. I mean, what the other people who've worked for P Diddy have said is that he screamed at them and that he was an impossible boss and a boss that used fear to control. That was the impression that I got. But here she is saying that everything was, and she'll use this phrase more than once, grandioso. Everything was grandioso. So again, I kind of tip to, I was amongst the best of the best. Hold on. And hold on one second. I just want to pull this up. Grandioso. I had to look up. I was like, what is grandioso? I was like, I know what grandiose is, but what is grandioso? That's a little, sorry about that. Just trying to pull up an overlay here so I can show you the difference. So this is grandioso in a grand and noble style, used chiefly as a direction, and it's also a tempo mark directing that a passage be played in a grand and noble style. So it is a word. I mean, and then there's grandiose, characterized by greatness of scope or intent, grand. So meaning much the same thing. I don't want to be nitpicky. Characterized by excessive self-importance or affected grandeur, pompous, which is, I don't know if I think she's just saying that he was at again, attaching herself to him when he was at his height. And he could have picked any makeup artist, but he chose me. I was with the A-list crowd. She seems very proud of that. Never mind that it's all gone now. I mean, his reputation is gone. No one wants to be associated with him. And the only real way to save yourself, if you're smart, is to speak out.
Super professional, super just, everything was so just grandioso.
But has your view now changed?
And doesn't she look uncomfortable? She's like, how long do I have to keep all the stuff that I do know in? That's also the other impression I got. This woman has seen stuff. She knows stuff. And I'll prove it to you in a bit. It's in the Cassie Ventura, who was P. Diddy's girlfriend, who sued civilly. And P. Diddy settled that lawsuit in 24 hours. And if that doesn't tell you that the claims in that lawsuit are undeniably probably true, I mean, a lawyer would say, well, it doesn't prove it. But sure, if you've lived on planet Earth and you're settling that suit in 24 hours, you don't want that thing around. But that was one of the things that I've heard brought the Fed's attention to P. Diddy.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, this is 24 years later, and it's shocking to hear all these allegations. It's completely shocking.
Shocking to hear them? Is it surprising, given everything that you may have gleaned about him in that period?
It is surprising. Yes, it is. I mean, it's been,
So here, Piers Morgan does not believe her, nor does, if you look at the comments, the link is in the description of this video. People don't believe her either. She's shocked now. So she came on with a game plan to say, I never saw anything. I'm totally shocked. And I'm going to use this P Diddy to get my name out there and to kind of promote myself. And boy, did it backfire on her, because Piers Morgan won't let up. So he's on to her. Strangely, he thought that the West Memphis Three, who pled guilty and came on his show after pleading guilty via Alford, he thought they, especially Damien Eccles, was an exceptionally nice guy. He's not always this swift, but on this he's pushing forward.
Hearing all of this, I mean, I owe a lot to Puff with my career, because I've worked with the biggest photographers in the world, the biggest directors in the world, and we've met. We would go to Paris Fashion Weeks. I mean, we were running around with like the biggest names in the business. So
right. So she was at the top of her game. She was with the biggest names in the business. She was on a first name basis with Puff. She was with Puff, with the biggest names in the business. I mean, all that we know. We know that Puff Diddy or P Diddy, or whatever you want to call him, Puff, whatever, had a huge career. You notice that these allegations or these kind of lawsuits only come out when people are on a downslide in their career, whether it's Bill Cosby or anyone else. You notice that these allegations, Kevin Spacey, only come out when they're on a downslide in their career. And my feeling is that the reason is because when they're so powerful and they're making so much money, they're untouchable. Nobody wants to bring them down, even the federal government, sadly.
To hear
it's very hard to stop something that's making people a lot of money.
All of this happening right now it's shocking.
You see, the reason I'm curious why you find it that shocking is that in 2010, you were very close to Cassie as well. And we've seen this horrific video, which emerged last year on CNN from several years prior, where he literally... Well, I'm just going to ask you, I'm going to just let the viewers know where I'm going here. There was this appalling video that we're now seeing where he literally beats her up in public, in a hotel, on a floor of a hotel, but in a public area. And it was absolutely despicable. Now, you said about that it wasn't a one-off, that when Cassie was beaten up on a separate occasion in 2010, you took her in, you said. We didn't even want to go to hospital, so I had a doctor friend of mine come and take a look at her. She was badly bruised, had knots on her head and a black eye. We were scared. I still have PTSD talking about it. That's nearly...
She has PTSD. Forget Cassie. She has PTSD from it. And it's interesting because she is mentioned, not by name, but in Cassie's lawsuit, she mentions P. Diddy's makeup artist. And it's an interesting connection. We'll get to it at the end
15 years
of this.
ago. So my only question to you is, given what you witnessed then, given what you knew had happened, and given what we all then saw with the second incident on that horrific video, actually, why are you that surprised about these allegations that have come to light?
I mean, for me, it's like it's just reliving the whole situation over again, and that to me is the shocking part of it.
Wait, so is she reliving the situation with Cassie? Because in the beginning of this interview, she said it was fabulous. She traveled the world and was with the top people. So what does she have PTSD about? So is it that she can't integrate, that someone, she can't integrate these two things? I don't think that's it. I just think that she doesn't want to talk about this part of P. Diddy. It's damaging to her that she was part of it. So she's just going to say that she didn't see anything, but she was very much part of putting Cassie and P. Diddy together.
I block that. That's PTSD. That's trauma that I experienced.
So, well, I'm sorry. So feel sorry for me is what she's saying. Feel sorry for me and what I went through.
And reliving it is really, difficult for me to experience, because I've known Cassie since she was 17 years old, and I was like her big sister, as well as her makeup artist. And just watching all of this it's absolutely shocking.
Right, but I mean, the reality.
Right. So it talks about the big age disparity in this. Puff Daddy was in his 30s, and how old was Cassie? There's literally a trigger warning on the filing. Was, I think, in her late teens, early adulthood, if I'm remembering correctly. So it sounds like that almost makes it sound like she knew Cassie before she knew P. Diddy. Doesn't it?
Reality is
disgusting.
But just based on what you witnessed that day in 2010, and based on what we've all seen in that other video, the guy, at the very least, was a person who beat up women. And yet the picture you painted of him, of your time with him, in the early 2000s, was actually very positive. And you say you're very surprised and shocked by what's now come out. I wouldn't be shocked if I'd seen what happened to Cassie at firsthand, and the way you did. I think this guy's a monster, and I'm curious why that isn't what you're thinking, or have you blanked that out?
Oh, I've absolutely blanked it out all these years, because it's something that I was very focused on my career. And so what happened then, obviously we couldn't discuss with anyone. So I had to blank it out of my brain.
Okay, so Piers Morgan gives her an out and she takes it. So there he says, well, did you just blank it out? Oh, yes, I absolutely blanked it out. And I blanked it out of my brain because I was doing such a top A+ job at my work that I couldn't reconcile what I saw. So I had to just continue on being the top of my tier professional. Does anyone want to hire me? I have business cards after this interview that I am. Just, you have to do, if you're going to do this, you just have to do it right and come out and say everything that you know. And don't tell it to Piers Morgan, tell it to the feds, and have some real courage. That's how I see it. Or else don't use this as your calling card. Because, you're basically saying that I'm a person that you can hire who's going to hide your secrets. And maybe that's something she's afraid of. Maybe there are too many secrets in this business, and you have to be a trustworthy person who's going to hide them. But not when it goes into the criminal areas. You shouldn't be.
Do you wish, with hindsight?
She seems to be talking about some sort of non-disclosure agreement there, that we couldn't talk about it. But anything criminal certainly trumps a non-disclosure agreement, I would think. If you're doing something criminal, I don't think that's covered in the non-disclosure agreement, but I'm not a lawyer.
Continue on and...
Right, but do you wish, with hindsight, and I'm not accusing you of doing anything wrong. I'm just saying, do you wish, with hindsight, to prevent him treating other people in such a horrendous manner, do you wish you'd taken it to the police, to authorities?
Of course. Absolutely. But, these are things that we couldn't do because we were terrified of Sean.
Right. See, that's really interesting because that wasn't how you described him at the start of this. So tell me about that. Clearly, there's another side to this guy, to the one.
Right. So she says he was grandiose, a perfectionist, top of his game. And then she says, oh, we were all terrified of him. That's a boss that uses fear to control.
That you painted when we first started talking. And the other side to him is appalling, isn't it? I mean, he wielded this power, this influence, this terror over you. Tell me about that.
I mean, like I said, like at the beginning of, you know, my career with Puff, you know, it was just like, you know, we were rising to the top. And like when it got to the point with Cassie, it was like very difficult for me to like just, I mean, deal with that. Like like even right now, it's just, it gives me like trauma.
Yeah. So then she thinks she has a way out with if she says trauma and PTSD enough that she'll appear sympathetic. She knows that she's not appearing sympathetic now. And she goes back to how she was rising to the top. She was with the best of the best. Did anybody wonder if she was with the best of the best and she was if P Diddy was at the top of his game? And the only thing she can say is, I blanked it out. Because really the question is, why didn't you speak up? Why weren't you more courageous? Why didn't you protect your, quote, little sister, unquote, Cassie? And she's getting very quickly that she's looking like a villain here. And so she's quickly using the words that will make her look like a victim.
And so watching all these allegations unfold, I mean, being an industry professional, that's all I cared about. And like, I don't know what goes on like behind closed doors. So that's not, you know, that's not something for me to like even think about. And so when, you know, watching this unfold has been really difficult for me to like, you know, like stomach.
Right, but it wasn't, I mean, just respectfully, it wasn't behind closed doors, because in 2010, Cassie came to you after he beat her up.
Well, no, but I was there. I was actually with her that night.
Right, but that's what I mean, is that you knew it was happening because you were there. Mm-hmm. Do you feel any sense of guilt that you didn't?
So that's something, another thing. So was she there while it was going on? Could she have called the police and didn't? I mean, she's really in the inner circle. Again, I was a temporary secretary in the bad boy offices. I did not, you know, I wasn't privy to this, and I was wondering what was going on. So this woman knows a lot. That's all I can say, a lot. A lot more than just Cassie. And she's quickly realizing that this was a major, major mistake.
Reporter?
Of course, absolutely. I feel a lot of guilt. I mean, I've been feeling that this whole entire year, you know, because I wish that I could have done something more. But at the time, we were both very terrified. So it's like, what were we supposed to do?
You said, this is a quote from you, we were always scared of Puff. He's a powerful person. We don't know what would have happened to us if we'd spoken out. He could make you disappear. I mean, that sounds like you're saying he would basically have you killed.
I mean, who knows? Who knows? We were just scared.
Did you genuinely?
She knows. Who knows? You know who knows? Mylah Morales, the subject of this interview, knows. She knows. She knows that people don't say that lightly. He could make people disappear. Because if you're saying that, you're going to sound like a crazy person if you're just making it up. Right? So she knows that he's made people disappear before. And she's quickly walking back because she's leaked out that she knows more criminal stuff. Makes her look worse. So it's not just Cassie that she knows about. She knows about other criminal stuff. And watch her walk back on this. So when I said that she's quickly regretting, I mean, she's quickly regretting this
Do you
interview.
think he might have you killed?
No, I don't. I was just saying that because that's something that, you know, it's a thought. It's just not. I don't know if it would happen. It was a thought.
Well,
Obviously.
that's a pretty extraordinary thought to have, Mylah.
Right. Show of hands. How many people who've worked for someone have thought, well, if I call the cops, he could kill me? How many people have worked for a boss like that? That's not a normal thought that you have about a boss. Grandioso or not.
Someone, isn't it? That they have the potential capability to do that.
Well, it was a thought.
Did you fear he might kill Cassie?
I don't know if I mean, like I said, I don't know. That's not something that, you know, like I have no idea. It's just, you know, to fear that, yes, but you know, to actually like I can't answer that question. I really can't.
And she can answer that question. There's an admission in the negative. Jane Kreisman is saying she's like Katie McManua from the Dan Markel case. Absolutely. Very much like. That's a great analogy. If she ever got parole. She does talk like Katie McManua, though. She doesn't know what she knows. This woman knows a lot. She'd be a great witness if she ever got. I don't know if she'll ever, if she has the courage. Courage is one of those things that if you're not born with it, you really have to work very hard to develop it. It has to be a thing. You know, you really have to will it in yourself to live courageously.
Yeah.
He came out, you know, did he, after the second attack that we knew about? There have been reports of multiple others. He put a video apology out. Let's take a look at this.
My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I was disgusted.
While he's shaking his head no. Well, he goes, I take full responsibility for my actions, as he's shaking his head no. So, I mean, it's just like you know, if you're wondering why you don't believe this while he's talking, one of the reasons is because A, he's not saying it with a lot of conviction. This sounds like a script his lawyer wrote for him. And B, he's shaking his head no. And I think he started shaking his head to mean like, oh, I can't believe, like in disbelief. But when it gets to, I take total responsibility, because it's put on play acting, it's not congruent with his real feelings. So he's still shaking his head no when he's trying to say that he's takes total responsibility for his actions. This is one of the worst apologies ever, up there with Kevin Spacey's weird play acting he did in character after all the allegations came out against him.
And when I did it, I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day.
There he is again, shaking his head no when he says he's committed to being a better man every day. That's called desperation time. And here she is. Here, Mylah is just covering her mouth. And it's visually, she's saying to, like, I don't want to talk anymore. Keeping in what she knows, covering up.
What do you make of that video?
I mean, it was, I didn't believe it.
Right. Because you knew he'd done it before.
Exactly. I mean, if he's done it before, then, you know, making an apology letter or apology video, that just holds no value for me.
There are a lot of rumors that he may have had some involvement in Kim's death. What do you feel about those rumors?
I mean, I don't know. I can't answer that question. I mean, those are rumors, and that's not something that I can answer.
Given everything that you've now read and heard about him, do you think it's possible?
Possibly. I don't know.
Okay, so that's a weak commitment, possibly. She's already said he can kill people. He has the power to kill people. She may not know about Kim Porter's death, particularly, but she knows it's in the realm of possibilities. But she's going to weakly commit to a weak answer. Weakly commit to that answer.
Like I said, I can't answer that question.
The indictments against him center around these freak-off parties where it's alleged place. Did you know about these parties? Did you ever attend them?
Absolutely not. I mean, I was there just to do my job, and I don't know anything about those parties. Like, I'm actually in shock to hear about them at this point. Like, I was there to do my job during the working hours, and then I would go home and work the next day. I mean, I had nothing to do with that. Absolutely not.
Was it not common knowledge that he had these late after parties, these freak-offs?
Not for me. I had no idea.
What do you think is going to happen to him, Mylah?
I mean,
Okay, just a question. So now we look back at these interviews of P Diddy, and he's telling talk show hosts that he has these parties where the real party starts after the big party begins. And she's saying she went to bed early every single time because she was such a professional. Guys, did you not get that she was such a professional and committed to her work and wouldn't take part in any shenanigans? Who could miss that part of this interview? We're almost at the end here.
I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm not sure. It's just, it makes me very sad to see, you know, the outcome of all of this. Like, just to see his legacy, like, where it is now and how we started. So
she's worried about his legacy. How about all the women? How about the women? How about all the victims, lady? She's worried about his legacy because, of course, that's the part that affects her. His legacy is gone. You're not getting it back by doing this interview. Terrible. Just, you know, this is just the kind of thing that you see in true crime, these kind of interviews. Anywhere, not just true crime. Just pay attention to what people say and how they say it and the language that they use. It's always very telling.
It makes me very sad.
Do you, I mean, his children have come out with a powerful statement saying the past month has devastated our family. Many have judged both him and us based on accusations, conspiracy theories, and false narratives that have spiraled into absurdity on social media. We stand united supporting you, Puffy, every step of the way. We hold on to the truth, knowing it will prevail and nothing will break the strength of our family. We miss you and love you, Dad. Now, you would expect kids to support their father, but the sheer welter of allegations, the horrific detail that's contained in them, the fact that this has all been run by the FBI, who obviously have, you know, pretty much an impeccable record of conviction with these kind of cases, it is more likely than not now that he's never coming out of prison.
And what do I think about it?
Yeah.
I feel very sad for his children, especially his children, because, I mean, they didn't ask for this. And now they have no mother, and they're not going to have a father. And that really that's devastating for me. Like,
my understanding is that his son has been alleged to have been part of this, but I don't know if any charges have come down on his son. but I know he's part of the allegations. But now would be a great time to say you feel really terrible for Cassie and all the victims. Here's another opportunity. And again, totally interested with his legacy and his children. And I'm sure some of them were not involved, but there are some that were involved.
Children are, I don't know what I don't know how to look at this.
Mylah, just for me, what's your biggest regret with all this, given what's now been coming out?
My biggest regret is not coming forward to the police about what happened in 2010.
Watching the Whack Job says, off topic, but I'm dying for Roberta to review the M. William Phelps podcast regarding Karen and Turtle Boy raging mad about it. Yes, even though he's getting 40% of the profits, right? Because M.W. Phelps, who did this podcast on Karen Reed called 34 Fairview, has the same manager as Turtle Boy. Yeah, I'm working on it. It was just a little bit more than to bite off than I could chew for today's episode. But yes, something's coming up on it. Yeah, I mean, how do you start a podcast and say, I'm going to give Turtle Boy, this guy with, 18 or 19 felony counts against him for witness harassment, 40% of the profits? And I was watching some of the stuff with Turtle Boy, and I hate to say it, but I sympathize in some ways with Turtle Boy because it seemed like Phelps didn't want to do a lot of the heavy duty research and make his own connections in his own way. And he did a lot of it. I'm not saying that he wasn't handsomely paid for it, but just true crime. The true crime media is just so poor right now. I don't know if it's ever been good, but it's really at a low. And I see people saying because Phelps came to this conclusion that Karen Reed is guilty, that it's great. But there's a lot of there's some factual errors, and just the quality of it, I think, is pretty poor. I mean, unless we demand better, it won't get better, you know. I mean, just any kind of true crime media that's produced.
Have you now been approached to talk?
Obviously,
have they asked you about that now to do a formal interview?
No.
If you got lost, here's Piers Morgan asking if the feds asked her to do a formal interview, and she says no. This is where I thought it got pretty interesting.
Are you expecting them to?
I hope not. I mean, this has all been very traumatic for me, like all of this.
But
Again, going back to what she knows, it's always about how she feels. I mean, her trauma is like 1/1,000,000th of what Diddy's victims' trauma is. And for her, it's everything. Very selfish person. That's how she's coming off.
If you were called to testify against him, would you do that?
I don't. No.
You wouldn't.
Horrible. You won't testify. Lady. You know what? Sometimes you're going to be called to testify and you can't help it. you can't help it. You're subpoenaed and you can't say no. This woman, obviously, I mean, if you're going on Piers Morgan, if you don't want to testify, don't go on Piers Morgan, because now you've alerted yourself to the feds as to someone they should be talking to. Oh my law. It's crazy, huh?
No, I don't think so.
Mylah, listen, I know it's very difficult for you. And like I said, I'm not making any suggestion that you knew about any of this other than obviously...
I am. I am. I'm making that suggestion. It's my own opinion. It's based on living life on planet Earth. I'm making that suggestion that you know a lot.
What you witnessed with Paul Cassie. And I appreciate you joining me. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's it. Okay, let's pull that out. I just want to show you very quickly before I go. So here's Cassie. The link is in the description of this episode. Here's the filing. I just want to show you the top of the filing. Hold on. There's a trigger warning. I've never seen that before in a legal filing. Have you guys? And then when you go to page 8 of it, there's a to the end of page 7, excuse me. During hair and makeup leading up to a performance, this is Ms. Ventura, Cassie Ventura, who filed the lawsuit against P. Diddy that was paid off within 24 hours by P. Diddy. Ms. Ventura's hairstylist and Mr. Combs' makeup artist told Ms. Ventura that Mr. Combs was interested in Ms. Ventura. That's gotta be Morales, who we just saw. Ms. Ventura shrugged off the gossip and in fact expressed disgust given the large age gap between her and the president of her record label. Is that her? Or is that not? Is that another makeup artist? But if Morales knew Cassie since she was, what'd she say, 17? Seems like it might be. Pretty interesting. I put that in for you to read. It is absolutely too graphic to read on a YouTube video, unfortunately. Very disturbing allegations. And when you pay them off in 24 hours, it leads me to believe that they are mostly, if not entirely, true. So that's what I have for today. I'll be back tomorrow with an episode on all the craziness. It's getting wild amongst Karen Reed, the free Karen Readers. They're all turning on each other over there, and all the latest on the new podcast and who's behind it. Tune in tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for listening to this with me. Have a great night, everyone. I'm going to go out with a little ditty to P. Diddy that I wrote. Have a great night, everybody.
Why don't you freak off to prison? Get your baby all in the commissary. He did it. You scream at employees. Put your fist to women's faces. But you were welcome in all the high-class places. He did it, it's all over now. He did it. You had a list free of hearts, went all night, sipping champagne, pushing pills, never said you were sorry. Fans want to put you away forever. Trafficking for years, you thought you were clever. He did it, it's all over now. He did it. You had a list of freak off parties, went all night, sipping champagne, pushing pills, never said you were sorry. Fans wanna put you away forever. Trafficking for years, you thought you were clever. He did it, it's all over now. Everything up must come down. You are the man of the hour, now you're a clown. You shouldn't have treated women that way. We would be better off if you went totally gay. He did it, it's all over now. years you thought you were clever, P Diddy. It's all over now. Everything must come down to with a man of the hour. Now you're a clown. You shouldn't have treated women that way.